Welcome, everyone. Unification Party Headquarters, Unification Party Podcast, co-host Adrian Blizzard. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. How you doing this week?
I'll have you on one more time, I guess. You've been such a good host in the past.
I appreciate it.
Things are great.
Yeah, wonderful. Is there anything that's caught your eye in the world around us? It's been pretty turbulent. I mean, it usually is, but this time in the world seems very turbulent.
Of course, everyone's talking about the Trump and Elon business, and I, as a starting point, I don't know why. I just feel like zero interest in it at all.
It's like when Amber Heard shit the bed. Like everybody cares, yada yada. But for me, I'm just kind of like, gross. Moving on. Like, yeah. No, I agree. I kind of got the vibe, just like now, like before we started the show, just looking at the world that's going on around us. That kind of seemed to have calmed down. Like there was a very turbulent, like nastiness, and I mean, obviously, for me, coming from a divorced home as a child, it's just kind of like, mommy, daddy, stop fighting. Like you're two people I like. Why aren't you friends? Like what's going on here? But at the end of the day, like you just said, it's like, okay, like yeah, I'm going with the idea that they're working on a way to give Elon disassociation from Trump to like rebuild his brand. That's kind of my.
Well, I've heard people saying that, but I don't think so. Okay, you can choose to believe that.
That's what I'm choosing to believe on the matter.
I don't think you would say like he's a pedophile and from Epstein Island if in a planned.
Well, I heard a good take on that. Elon's like on the spectrum, so like, and there's a couple of times Elon's been known to crack jokes in the White House and so forth. That like nobody laughs at, like nobody gets some of these jokes because they're like, I guess they're so good. And the take is that in Elon's like little like autistic fever of whatever was going on there, he threw that out there as kind of just like, now I've said everything, like everything's been said, like there's just it's over now. It's kind of like you're Hitler. Once I call you Hitler, the argument's kind of now on the downswing. There's nowhere else really to go. I said you were on Epstein's island, and we're done here.
That's weak for sure.
What do you think?
I think you have two huge personalities. Like, I mean, I don't think you need to get into like monkey business. You just have two huge personalities. Elon Musk is you could say perhaps was singularly focused on cutting the deficit, getting rid of waste spending, fraud, abuse, blah, blah, blah. And then quite simply, not because Trump probably wants to get rid of those things too, but has made a million promises to this person, that person, and this. Plus the wheels need to be just keep turning, so they all need to be greased. And even if Trump wants to, and he understands the looming deficit is an existential crisis for the United States, that Musk thinks the best someone in politics, unlike business, a person in business says, oh, okay, I want to pivot from point A to point Z. And then they can take the steps to do it. In politics, on your way to going from point A to point Z, maybe Trump, the best he can do in a compromising world is to go from A to G. So Trump or Musk wants Trump to go from A to Z through the whole alphabet and radically. Now, no longer we're going to cut budget, we're going to cut austerity, we're going to cut spending, we're going to decrease this, decrease that. But Trump can only do what he can do inside the existing system. And apparently there's all these like, this is that kind of reform bill and it's not a budget. And I can't even keep track of all the different.
Yeah, it's an it's
like a bureaucratic
mess that's going to not let anything happen. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So perhaps I get why some Republicans are still happy because Trump has at least gone from A to G, a few letters through the alphabet in the direction that they want or need, but maybe it's too much to ask for. I guess that's kind of where I sit because, I'm a cynic and I've been disenchanted by the system, but for a brief moment, I had like a glimmer of hope, like where, Trump's got the judiciary, he's got the House, he's got the Senate, he's got the presidency. So,
The votes.
yeah, boom, bang, it's just things are really going to change in a big way. I mean, I guess a lot of people could argue they have with tariffs and
Culturally, too. Like
yeah,
DEI is socially acceptable to be like, that's crazy. Whereas like 6 months ago, it was like, no, that's the law.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. So how can I make heads or tails of that when like I'm listening to the smartest people who are like the insiders, right? Like they're like all coming up with their different ideas about this, that, and the other, and they're all over the map. So bottom line to me, simple is you have two billionaires, two big personalities, two people who traditionally are not really into sharing the spotlight, to not expect that there would be some sort of fireworks or a falling out. I guess the embarrassing thing is how silly it got, as
How
opposed to
public?
them just
Yeah, how
and
public and
silly.
juvenile.
Yeah,
Juvenile.
like yeah,
I mean, I was more mature when I was 11 years old, not talking to the kid down the road.
yeah.
Like, it was, that was
You
definitely,
didn't go around slandering him with the other kids. Yeah.
but that's where it gets back to my first conclusion of like where it was almost theatrical.
Yeah, but okay, I'm willing to grant that as a premise that would be a good idea. He spent my $300 million, got me elected or helped, and saved free speech, and at great personal cost because of his involvement in Doge. But he already had an end date for Doge, so let's send him off with a hoorah. Do you not? Well,
His products in the streets.
I understand that. Everyone gets that it was bad for him to the tune of 20% decrease in Tesla stock.
And
But would you not, just a second, would you not agree that these guys, the billionaires, could pay for proper PR people to write and choreograph a much more dignified and less ridiculous, like 5D chess scenario, not like I hate you and I'll scratch your eyes out and he's sleeping with children and I'm like ridiculous to even give that whole idea to me is insane. Like it's because it was terrible. It's embarrassing to both of them.
It's 100% that I will
Yeah.
give.
So they wouldn't. So if they were going to script something, even we could probably come up with a better script than that, I would think. But anyways, apparently Trump said today the definitive word: there is zero chance for reconciliation. So
he said, as Elon called, he said, "I don't know, I haven't checked the phone." You can ask Elon if he's called. Like I don't.
again, even more, it's Melrose Place.
He was pretty civil. He seemed. I saw Trump today talk about it. He was being questioned about a couple of things, primarily of which seems to be to kind of shift gears. Have you seen the burning down of Los Angeles in the last 72 hours?
Loving it. Just want to, it's loving seeing those cities burn.
Well, Los Angeles in particular, it's almost like every 13 years something has to go down. Like they were making movies about it in the 80s.
Yeah, I could actually say, if you remember there were Rodney King riots, I was on a rugby tour blocks/kilometers from the epicenter of the Rodney King riots, and we were staying as youngerish people. We were staying in a motel that had, like those motels that are kind of like U-shaped, and you come in to one end of the U, and there's like two floors all around, but there's really only one entrance in. It kind of, if you were to park, for example, across the entrance to it, if you were to cross it with a bus, you could make the whole thing a sealed compound. And that's what they did when our tour people took the bus that we were using, and then the bus driver parked it across like a drawbridge, a gate across the front of the motel, and blocked the front off. And because that's how they thought that's what was going to happen, but nothing happened.
The preparation, that's the key. Did you
We
guys?
were ready.
How did you do at the tournament in LA?
We killed them, crushed them. They're not strong in the States in rugby. At that time, they weren't. But
yeah, no, rugby was new when I was in high school. I can't imagine. Yeah,
it was very new. It was very new when I was in high school as well.
Yeah.
So I'm well versed in experiencing the Los Angeles riots.
Well, do you want to hear what Trump has to say about that?
Absolutely.
I have I'd like to share here from another streamer, Asmongold here. He's just got Trump on, and it.
Right around the time that we were walking in here, the governor and the state attorney general said that they're going to sue you for sending the National Guard in. They're saying there's no invasion, there's no rebellion. The president is trying to manufacture chaos and crisis on the ground for his own political ends. Federalizing the California National Guard is an abuse of the president's authority under law.
Well, it's interesting. You watched the same clips as I did. Cars burning all over the place, people riding. And by the way, we stopped it. We were able to make it much better, but it still looked pretty bad. And in watching clips last night, people were saying this is really a big problem. And until we went in, if we didn't do the job, that place would be burning down just like the houses burned down. They were in big trouble last night, Peter. You know it. And the night before, and the night before that. And I feel we had no choice. I don't want to see happen what happened so many times in this country. I watched Minneapolis burn. Look at what happened in so many different parts of California. You take a look at what happened in San Diego. There's so many different places where we let it burn. We want to be politically correct. We wanted to be nice.
Big mistake.
We want to be nice to the criminal.
Huge mistake.
And what you're doing is destroying the fabric of our life in this country. No, we did the right thing. We've been given credit by people that I would least suspect. Why I would say that some of the people that came in and said, thank goodness, they said, some of them, thank God that Trump got involved. And I'm very happy I got involved. And I think Gavin, in his own way, is probably happy I got involved. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
What do you make of the fact that he says you want a civil war on the streets of America?
No, that's just the opposite. I don't want a civil war. Civil war would happen if you left it. If you left it to people like him.
What?
And I like him. I always got along with him. Never had a problem with him.
Wow.
But he's grossly incompetent. Okay.
So.
I love it.
How can you not? Like. Yeah,
I like when they're asking him the question the whole time. He just looks like he's bored, or he's like he has to keep this. Yeah, he just has to keep this. Like not only do I have to respond to this foolishness, I have to sit here and listen to this foolishness. Like
we all don't know it's friggin' ridiculous what they're doing. Did you see the Kash Patel or whoever, the FBI? They got a $50,000 reward for that guy hucking bricks.
No, I did not see that.
I actually had a couple of clips. I'll just quickly let's see if I can share.
Fire it up.
Okay, not this girl here. This guy's pretty good. Gavin Newsom. This video is from 2020. James Woods is retweeting a video, and then this guy down here's replies pretty sight. Gavin Newsom wants to be clear that this video is not from 2025 when he let Los Angeles burn, but from 2020 when he let Los Angeles burn.
Well, that's good. Well, yeah, you gotta be precise.
This is going on a $5 bill someday, right here. Maybe not in this country. That's whatever. Burning flags. That looks like Lebanon.
Well, see, what, Adrian? That's not a very nuanced approach. See, this is a mostly peaceful though. This is a mostly peaceful riot.
They're mad at the robot taxis. It's against the robot taxis. They hate the Waymos. That's what they're
But they're mostly peaceful.
Well, if you call it a protest, you voted for Biden. If you call it a riot, your eyes are open. Like it seems to be that's the divide right now for sure. That's the code. Scott Adams called it right. Like at what point is it mostly? Like are we saying 51% not hurting anybody, 49% whipping bricks? Is that mostly peaceful?
So if 9% of the people are murderously but 91% are good, it's fine to go there. I don't know.
What I would say, hear me out. Picture 300 people protesting, and picture 3 agitators coming in with, like fire hoses. And if the 300 people like immediately leave, well, then it was like mostly peaceful. But if the 300 people like stay while these water cannons are destroying everything and they're like cheering on the water cannons, then it's not really peaceful anymore, you know, if they're doing damage. Like, I don't know. It's clearly just political when it comes to that, like the words that people are using. People are casting spells with their deception, with the words they're choosing to use to just fool the average person to think whatever, you know.
Well, that's just it, right? There's like every single issue now. Well, it probably always has been it lines up neatly in its group, and that's basically it, right? And so, like you say, riot,
and we're gonna feed you sandwich. Like everybody wants something different, but we'll give you, you know, everybody gets their fill.
I don't want to make light of the real suffering that takes place in places like Gaza and whatever, LA, insert whatever place in the world that's having troubles, but I guess it just gets to a point where it's like so overwhelmingly ridiculous that, I mean, humanity has been doing these things forever, and I don't know why. I mean, I just can't get fired up anymore about, you know, when I was a young man, I suppose I wanted to like, well, there'd be some utopia where we would all just like learn to get along. And I guess, and now I've just slowly shifted more to like self-preservation of me and those sort of that are near and dear to me. And what's going on in Gaza, LA, I don't know. They're like AI videos, right? We become so detached. Overwhelmed. Yeah, detached. It's like, it's ridiculous.
Well, I also think we're with social media and TV, even let alone like the internet, we're just desensitized because we've seen so much. You know what I mean? Like,
now I can't remember how old I was, but I was young teen, I think, and I remember watching the news where they dragged the Ceausescus from Romania, who were the leading party at the time, communist, and they shot them in the head in the town square. Yeah. And I remember seeing that on the news, like in real time, not blurred. And I remember clearly, and I remember it having a major effect on me. I think that was when I was just getting, I think I just like in a real, in a way like that in a real, footage. And yeah, it probably was the first time I saw
accident videos weren't big. It was America's Funniest Home Videos, and Dad fell off the lawnmower. He didn't die. You didn't see.
This is probably, and this might even be pre, blooper VHS.
I remember videos. My first the death I saw.
But let me finish. I'm just saying it's when I understood that stuff became real, that it had an effect on me. But as you've said, now with that, and then the frequency of seeing everything that you could possibly imagine in the world, whether it's even good, bad, or indifferent,
or AI.
Or AI, the next phase of who knows. So I don't know. I'm trying to get emotionally invested in what's going on, but I think, like I said before, I was not expecting, that's naive, but hoping for some sort of change, major shift, and it doesn't seem like it. We maybe haven't even gone from A to Z. We haven't even gone from A to G. We probably haven't even course corrected as far as A to B, headed in the opposite direction. So, well, time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah, like it's pendulums, right? Like it swoops and then it swoops. So
yeah, but we haven't had the swoop. We're still all hanging left. You can crack it up to a few, like we don't talk about DEI as much and this, that, and the other, but the institutional structures are still all in place. They'll switch the name of DEI. Do you think all those administrators who believed in DEI are just going to abandon it because it's not, like, it's against the law now in a certain way? Like, the Democrats have demonstrated over and over and over again that the letter of the law is not their concern. The spirit of the law is not their concern, and they'll do whatever they can to get what they want by bending the rules or reinterpreting or changing the nature of language. So
Yeah,
these
so the
things haven't gone away.
it's always happened. It's just a different name now. It's
Yeah,
social
so
democrat now. Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's always going to be there. And like, but the thing is, I think what's also always there is the counterforce, which is like conversations like you and I have, which is just an open forum where we're both willing to call each other out if we think or share our whatever. Whereas like they're towing party lines and going with like the modern thing, and they're always focused on like whatever the goal of the week is, no matter what. And they love the diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're always going to have that. They want to separate everybody up into their little boxes so that they're easier divided and they can just, pick the power up their own way. So that's just been an age-old thing. You know what I mean? There's people who want to tell people what to do and people who want to just be left alone. So I don't see why. I think it's coming to light. Like, people are starting to see it. Like, the one thing that is nice about the internet, like, they wouldn't be clamping down on it if it wasn't like opening people's eyes to like the ineptness of like most governments and most of these like movements, and how like just kind of shady and corrupt everything seems to be. Like,
well, are you familiar at all, or did you look into it all, or are aware of all of these, like, apparently these new hidden, security features in Carney's new bill where they're going to be, yeah.
Yeah, I looked into it.
What's your understanding of that?
Well, it looks like the doormat for digital currency. It also seems like I saw pushback on social media from leftists about that. They were afraid that migrants were going to get targeted with this new digital security. But whatever, they were still not liking it. Like, I was like thinking like that might be the one thing that maybe we could like clamp down on. Like, don't send these remittances home. It's welfare to build your house here. But yeah, no, it seems like all sorts of bullshit. Like no, and like no cash transactions on over 10 grand. Like, the government of Canada, and like they love to use this number like 10 grand, like for like they treat like tax paperwork like we're all still in 1992, when it's like no. Like, you
the sunshine list, $100,000 exactly.
Yeah, let's get some inflation adjusted numbers here.
Yeah.
And like none of this CP lie stuff. Like, get some real like libertarian adjusted numbers here.
Yeah, no, they could never do that. It would be shocking.
Oh, buddy. Yeah. Silver hit like not an all-time high, but a pretty nice high. It broke $50 Canadian an ounce. Fun today. On a note of like everyone's uncertain. That doesn't bode well. Like, people say when silver goes up, times are bad. Okay,
I'm not disagreeing with your statement that that's a bad sign.
The last, but have we not 8 and 82? Just saying, just for reference.
That sounds good, but have we not also looked at every other economic indicator? Seems like it's a nightmare. So
100%.
This is just 100%. Just one more. Yeah.
Every central bank is like going to have to lower rates. Like, they're all like, maybe not Norway. Okay, great. Let's all do what they're doing.
Those 5 million, let's have $1 trillion sovereign fund that we can weather the bad times.
Of oil and like 5 million homogenous pretty people who like winter.
Well, yeah, just stay out of the no-go zones. You'll be all right.
You're right, though. No, yeah, things are all over. And then there's like even China. Like, I know I talk about it once in a while, and I don't know how much you kind of look into China, but it just seems like every day there's like another 4 or 5 factories getting burnt down because a worker didn't get paid. And it's just like, you can't only handle so many.
China seems to be, well, I mean, I think the problem. Here's an interesting idea. Let's try to tackle this. This would make more sense because there seems to be 2 truths about China. And this thought just came to me, so let's play with it for a second. You know how in the past we've talked about, or some people, not just us, but just that there's more of like, okay, so let's take Japan, for example. So its population is decreasing. So your first thought would be, oh, real estate would be getting cheaper. And well, that's true, but it's free in the countryside where nobody wants to live and getting even more expensive in Tokyo. So I'm going to take that idea being is that the future, the non-globalist future is one of fracture. And maybe this idea of looking at countries as a whole and drawing conclusions is maybe a silly way to look at it. like maybe the reason why there's two different economic data coming out of China and there's two different groups, like China's poised for the biggest growth ever, strike, China's doomed for failure, is what you might have is you might have these like super successful districts in China that maintain manufacturing or have some sort of geographic advantage or shipping or the smartest and the best and the brightest because they're a super competitive country, or all the Asian countries, for example, they will congregate in these like Uber centers like Shanghai and Hong Kong and Singapore. And then these troubles and the things that you're talking about, they'll just turn them loose to the countryside. So again, this isn't based on anything other than the more I try to look into all these different regions, there seems to be like same thing with Canada. You look at Canada and you go like, here's one bit of economic data that's coming out, and you'll say like, well, that's the other side is they're fudging the numbers and they're lying, but yet restaurants are full and in a lot of places, and Taylor Swift sells out her tickets. There seems to be money rolling around in some circles. So again, this idea maybe in the future of talking about countries as like a uniform mass is not as enlightened as maybe looking at specific regions, like maybe more of an urban rural divides, right? Because like we live semi-rural. It's not the same scenario as Toronto. I know that's been the case, but even greater in the future.
For clarity, if you want to know my worldview of China, I don't ever see China, the country, like falling. That's not what I see. I just see the CCP falling, the Chinese Communist Party.
I think that's synonymous at this point.
And and in my mind, I actually think that they'll do better in the long run without them. But if you look back at like the history of China, though, it's kind of like they've always just had a history of strong dynastic families running the show. And right now, you can make a case that the Han Chinese are like the rulers of China. And there is a bit of ethnicity there, and I think that's something that as foreigners we don't really take into consideration. Like you mentioned, the urban-rural divide. There's like multitudes of ethnic divides. Like, and these people, like to us, it's like, oh, the Chinese people. It's like to them, it's like, no, I hate that guy. I hate that guy. I hate his uncle.
Well, that's just it. So the future, you're indirectly sort of saying the same thing. Is that the future involves fracture? Yeah. So you might have all these different groups in China, and then maybe again, of course, the idea of China is not going to disappear. Like there'll still be a place over there that is China.
For 4,000 years. Like they're
not. No, but even look at Canada. Like there was a country called Canada. In the future, there could be a country called Canada that's beside a place called Western Canada, which is another country. Like things can get smaller, right? That's happened in the past.
As a kid, I always used to joke that I don't know where World War III will be fought, but peace talks will be held in Scarborough because everyone already lives there. Like that. Like, so there is, I don't know. I guess it's true. Like, yeah, maybe that's what it is. Like the liberal openness kind of like ran its course of like homogeny actually is what breeds success relatively, with a balance of like openness. You know what I mean? Like with I think it's just like, a healthy focus on nationalism there's nothing bad about that. And you see it with like a lot of countries like Cuba, for example. It's a country that economically is like devastated, on paper, but like you go there, they have strong family units. Like you don't really see too many like fat people. Like the people are more or less healthy. Like they, they have different.
They're calorie restricted diets.
They might be apathetic about their government, but they are still like happy to be Cuban more or less. And like, they're not. So there is more to life than the GDP, like we say sometimes, but I don't know. It'll be the future is interesting, and it does seem to be like the last few years have been like the few years of division, like leading up like the 90s with the internet. It was like we're all like brothers and sisters. Like let's meet on AOL and like exchange fun stories about what happens in our country. And now it's kind of like you see it like everyone's kind of tribing up, like it's kind of going on. With the South African farmers coming over, like everybody is just like, but it's always been kind of like that. I think maybe we just kid ourselves in North America and the West that.
I think we tell this story that Canada is a country of immigrants, but for the first bunch of time, They were all immigrants from a pretty homogeneous group, right?
Yeah.
We all sort of did the same-ish things. And even that was challenged, right? Even with the complete homogenous sort of like language, culture, even religion. I mean,
I don't want you going with no Protestant. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but
Right,
you
for
know,
sure. Well,
but
they
there
had
was
troubles in the troubles just ended in the 90s. You know, that's what I always used to say about Islam. Like, gives me hope for them to kind of find peace. Is like, well, the Irish were bombing each other in the 90s, so I don't know. There's always assholes out there, whatever stripe you want to call from, that's going to try and hurt somebody else. And I still think the majority of people are inherently good. That's what gives me hope for seeing something like this.
Absolutely, but I do think like a lot of these things are Pollyanna ideas because they're products of like success and wealth, like they're, you know, like luxury beliefs as they're called sometimes. It's when the shit hits the fan is when you find out, is when your like reptile brain takes over, and you know, we overcorrect on with suspicion against outside. Like these were things that served us, you know, going back evolutionarily. And I mean, there can become a maladaptive like where they can be not beneficial for you because you don't, like, I didn't learn about the wheel because we stayed hidden from the other groups, right? So you're too scared to interact in any way and learn nothing. But then there's people who are probably come on into and then the next thing you know, everybody in their village is killed. So there's some sort of cool level in us.
There's an equilibrium.
Yes. But go ahead.
I've heard smarter people say that basically like Europeans have always had this like innate desire to like find like the betterment of other cultures, where like most cultures predominantly, whether it was like Middle Eastern or like Chinese or from the Indo area, like they were kind of like content with like, no, we're good with our thing. Like we're pretty happy just doing this thing we're doing here. We're just going to do that forever. Whereas like the Europeans, the Greeks, they were always kind of exploring and trying to like find new things. And then it kind of like breeds like what we have now, which is almost like suicidal empathy, where we almost just like hate ourselves. Like we're like the one race that is, I don't know. I've just heard people talk about that theory before, and it kind of resonates. Yeah,
but I don't know if it's a product of white Western culture as much as it is a product of wealth. Yeah, like wealth in the top. And then what happens is people, like you just said before, there's always assholes who want to cause trouble. And then there's people who use those assholes to inflame problems, to gain power and money. So that's, you know, just a continuation of that, you know, BLM and these other fringe groups where I guarantee you there's black money or gray money, flowing, dark money flowing in to, you know, to keep the pot stirred for a variety of reasons.
Well, and they also say too, with like the falling of societies, usually it's like the established class like lets in some new people to do some of these jobs that they just don't want to do anymore. And then it's like, well, like everybody just gets like that gluttony bot. We all just get a little too high on the hog, and you know.
Well, I you know, looking up some of the history of, you know, the carnivore diet or whatever, there's a correlation that goes along with the carnivore diet is where the agrarian societies got together. It was easier to get their food. They started growing vegetables. They become decadent and weak. And then the tribe and mountain hill people who are blood drinkers and meat eaters are strong. They roll on down into the town, wipe everybody out, full of energy, wipe everybody out. And then in 2 generations, they're the sloth and they're the bread eaters and they're the hanging around and getting nothing done. So this is just, this is a circle. Yeah, exactly. And so,
be careful what you wish for. Yeah, you can have the warm hunks and the jelly. You want the jelly? You can have the jelly.
But some strong man is going to come and take your house and your wife from you. That's your future.
Yeah, or if so not, take it from your kids because they're going to be jelly eaters.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. Yeah, you won't take it from you. You'll take it from your kids. So, and you know, just interesting related to this is I've noticed a number of festivals, unrelated festivals, one was in Sault Ste. Marie, one was here, one was there. Things that have long traditions of taking place have been canceled this year due to lack of volunteers. And I remember in one of our previous episodes, we talked about, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but he had come up with this theory about, as social cohesion falls apart,
Going along.
Yeah. And they're essentially that
fabric of community.
Social trust, you don't get involved, you don't help, you don't this and that. And I just wondered if, as much as these riots are a much bigger example of what we're talking about, but when you combine that with the idea we said of like dark money fueling some of these, it almost gives you, is this even real, or how big is this, burning riot? Is it a political theater? But when you start seeing, in the streets, and again, I don't want to make too big a comparison, but if you start seeing like more and more of these like festival canceled because of lack of volunteers, animal shelter closed due to lack of funds, like when you start seeing these para community organizations that were sort of community funded, legions and other stuff, if we start noticing, this would be like, the harbinger of collapse. When you start seeing those, when no one's politically motivated to be supporting them or destroying them, they're kind of like apolitical, just sort of picking up the pieces on the picking up the pieces of in the periphery. When we start seeing, I'm just drawing our attention to this, is we should start paying attention to these things in our community and in the news. Like that would be that's the beginning, the beginning of the acceleration of the collapse. I would hypothesize.
On a similar note to something I heard about clubs recently, you know how I'm kind of hard on the male social and the female divide. So essentially, this might come across like that, but basically there was this woodworking club in England. And like basically what happened is like all over England in these like shops and like buddies' garages, like men would get together and then like meet up and like do woodworking and like make stuff, whatever, right? But then eventually like women came in and like some of the clubs would let women in. But it was supposed to be kind of like just a gentleman's club, like just one place where like, but then it became a big deal because like one of the clubs was like, yeah, no, the foot is down. This is not, we're not letting women in. And it was like kind of like a big deal. But I think about that. I think we need to bring back like men's spaces. You know what I mean? Because it's not, even just think about that right there, that term men's spaces. I feel so effeminate saying that phrase right there. But like to say a woman's space, like as a man who inherently cares about the protection of women in my heart and in my DNA programming, I'm kind of like, yeah, I get that. Like women, yeah, they should have their own space. If they want a space, let them have a space. But like we say men's space, and all of a sudden we're like El Bundy on like a bonus episode.
You could argue, I'm just throwing out a masculine approach. Why don't a bunch of guys just get together and don't call it an organization and don't make a big production of it and go make things in your garage? And then Lucy from around the corner, like, doesn't have to know about it. So to me, it's already kind of like girly if you're posting posters around your neighborhood.
We get it. You're cool, Jay. We get it. You're cool.
The guys group.
You don't like the label. But it kind of
I 100% get what you're saying, for sure.
Remember when you were kids and like you just couldn't get rid of that one guy, like, once in a while you just wanted to hang out without Leonard coming around, and like he kept just showing up and you're just like, did everyone tell Leonard we were here? Like, what, it's kind of, I get what you're saying, but I just, to that same counterpoint, I would say like, it shouldn't be, we're so supportive of women like these days and like their own past and this and that. Like we've thrown men out, you know what I mean? Like completely. So to the point where
that's
even
not
feels
news.
weird to say men's space. No, I know.
Absolutely.
I know, but I think that would be one of the ways to kind of like take back and swing the pendulum back the other way. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, let's put the gas on, the brakes on, like gas. It was gas feminism for like 50 years. Gas, no brake. Now maybe just let it, we got to go back. Because that's clearly one of the symptoms of the greater ill.
Yeah, but there's an interesting book. I'm going to try to remember the name of, which I won't in the moment, but it doesn't matter. It was written in Czechoslovakia at the fall of the Soviet Union. And basically it's kind of like a how-to of like beating the system. And essentially the system was beat by parallel systems. So the moment your solution is to integrate with the existing systems
You've
and
lost.
then change them, well, yes, that's, I guess, what I'm saying. You've lost.
You're playing on their
So,
rules. It's over.
yeah, and I don't
It's a
think
good one
so.
too.
So, like, yeah, returning to, and I know I was being full of bravado when I was saying it a minute ago. It's as if men need to stop asking permission. Essentially, is what I'm saying.
Great.
Is and just do the things that they want to do. We're all very, like, we've been taught to follow the rules, but there's still, and as much as people say we're controlled, and I know, being a guy who likes to find loopholes, we are not nearly as controlled as we think we are. And we are free to do an awful lot of things. I mean, if you're a crybaby, you say, oh, I want to build this kind of thing in the middle of town. Well, no, you're not free to do that.
Can't have a machine gun on your car. Like, sorry,
Right.
Tom. Like,
yeah. But you know what, Tom? If you kept your mouth shut on your, no, not even. If
on
you
your
kept
own
your
land.
mouth shut, Tom,
Your
and you
50
had 100 acres, and you
Yeah.
drove around with a machine gun in your car, you're
Yeah.
not loud, but nothing would happen.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, there's a lot of places in Canada you can go, or other places in the world you can go. Like, there's nothing stopping anyone tomorrow. I'm going to say, like, you know what? I want to live the rest of my life in a jungle. Well, get on a plane, fly to Colombia, throw your passport in the garbage after you've cleared customs, take a bus through the jungle, and then walk. And you're like, who's going to stop you? Nobody. Not one person.
You kind of gave me memory. Remember the guy with the school buses?
Yeah, the McCandles, I think.
That was like the saddest thing ever. Like, that guy had like Gus, and he actually, I'm pretty sure he was like an engineer for like bunkers for like dams or something like that. The guy,
I don't think he was any of those things.
There was no, but I don't think it was his jerry rig. Like, I think he worked with proper people.
No, he was nothing. He was just, I read the book. He was a young kid. Yeah, basically a young kid with mental health issues, in the sense, mental health like every young kid has. Like, what's the purpose of, like,
school buses and build a bunker? Or are we not talking about
like, you're mixing up two stories, is what the problem is. That's okay. The problem we're having here.
Fair.
All right. So what you first started talking about is a book called Into the Wild.
No, I was not. I was not.
Okay, but that's the guy.
That's where I can tell you were talking. I was like, no, I wasn't talking about that guy. I was talking about the old dude in Alberta who built the bunker out of buses, and immediately the local town's like, yeah, no, sorry, code.
Well, sure, yeah. There's those guys too. But
yeah, I think
the correlation is the guy was. I said walk off into the jungle.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize.
The correlation is that McCandles guy who walked off into the Yukon or the Alaska.
Across the river. Across that river.
Yeah, it never returned. But and then yes, there are 100,000 examples of people who built things that they shouldn't have, and then the town said no. But
there's that's we don't know about. There's a million we don't know. Right?
There's a more than a million that we don't know.
Yeah.
About. And so
again, that's the way I kind of like look at it. And like, a lot of people don't get it, where it's like, there at the end of the day, there is base laws. Like, if you want to cover your front yard in punji sticks and like traps, like in Vietnam, where if someone comes in, they're gonna die. Like, well, like, we don't need a building code. We have like manslaughter. So like, it better be a bad person you get in your bungee pigs. Like, if
absolutely. I mean, there's other rules that I'll get you, but actually there are. Like, I remember, I have a background in real estate, and I remember looking at a property in Toronto that had been fortified by the Hells Angels as a clubhouse. Okay. And one of the conditions why it had been returned, or whatever, the reason it was back going out is there was bylaw infractions, because there actually are bylaw infractions that address the fortifying of property. So one of the disclaimers on this property was that there was significant, you might say, de-improvements that would be required if you were to purchase the property to bring it up to code and whatnot. So as funny as that is, you'd think that there's nothing stopping you from, steel plated doors and drop cages and whatever there might be. But rurally, probably no one's got a rule for that.
Well, I did see a funny video today of a guy walking through this like castle turret, like built in like the 40s. And he just like goes through and points out all the code infractions. And he's like, yeah, but meanwhile, this like 80-year-old building is perfectly fine. It is not going anywhere.
That's the thing. Like if you watch every single one of those tiny home off-grid living and cool Earthship and Space Mother Earth.
Tire house.
There's not one of those houses that will pass. And then same thing. Forget the cheap shit that's off-grid. Look at like Architectural Digest and this and that. And they have these like sweeping staircases with no banisters. They have like tables that do this.
Someone could go through that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, no, you need to have a wrought out, so there's like coolness is usually, the system gets rid of it. So
there's the reason the subdivisions look the same in Wyoming and in Quebec. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, to the point that we're saying is it's these parallel systems. So again, growing food, getting involved in your community, who's growing food there, what can you grow? And again, this is all fun stuff. You get to the farmer's market every week. You see Tony and Julie, and you trade your ham for a cabbage. Yeah, like we don't have to expect the apocalypse, but these are the kinds of places where real change is going to take place. Like, what are you and I going to do that's going to affect the riots in Los Angeles? Like
we could go there and like hold Canadian flags. We get it on the camera. We like
burn Canadian flags or burn Mexican flags or.
No, and that's why the riots is one of those where you're just kind of like. Here's what I was thinking too, from the perspective of like, they're dropping bricks everywhere. It looks like there's dark money behind these riots, which there clearly is. To some to say who it is, that's a different story. But
USAID.
Or whatever. My point is, it's clearly the same people that like don't like Trump. We can make that clear, right? That's very clear. But you're like, you think you would have let this like Elon story run a little more? That was pretty good, and then you just kind of backwash that. And we just.
Well, you assume all the people are like a consolidated group. The anti-Elon, the brick people, and this. Like, there's all kinds of groups behind the scenes, all trying to push their own agenda. They're not waiting for Musk's situation to fall by the wayside.
I did find out something interesting today that kind of is, take it what you will, is that like, did you know that 7 of the 9 Supreme Court justices are all one religion? They're all the same.
Are they?
What religion do you think it is? Take a guess.
Would have to be Catholic?
Yeah.
Yeah, because most people, unless they're evangelical Christians, they don't really say it. But that doesn't mean anything. But that means nothing.
It doesn't mean nothing.
Well, I'll tell you why it means nothing. Because growing up in the evangelical church, we had a term for what most people, what we'd call Christians. They were called C&E Christians.
Is that Sunday worshipers or?
No. C&E is Christmas and Easter.
Yes. Yeah, I was a C&E.
Yeah. And I've seen your life. I've witnessed your life. So I know that means nothing. That you grew up Catholic or this and that. Again, that's not a slag on you.
No, you're right. No, it's just it's like
I'm Catholic. My name's Todd Polsky. My great-great-grandfather moved from Poland, but we've lived in Canada for 300 years, but I'm Polish. It's like the same. I'm Catholic. Like, it doesn't necessarily, unless you have some sort of like deep-rooted affiliation with the church at this day and age, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything, but I'm also saying in and of itself, it doesn't mean anything.
I agree. No, it's just something. It was just a thing that I was like,
if you told me all 7 of the 9 were evangelical Wesleyan Methodists, then I'd be like, wow, that's kind of interesting.
Well, I kind of always viewed America more as a Protestant country. So for me, I found that's probably more or less where I found it interesting. I always thought...
but that's why that's why I was able to guess Catholic, because it doesn't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're a Catholic, you say, "Oh, our family's Catholic. We're Catholic. I was christened. I was baptized." You haven't been
It's like
through
checking a box. I got you. You're
yeah,
just checking a box. Religion, Catholic.
no
Yeah.
Protestant, right? If you grow up Protestant and you're not actively involved in the church to this day, you don't say like, "Oh, I'm a Protestant. I'm Anglican." You say like that, "I don't go to church." Right?
Mhm.
Catholic, you're just Catholic. I'm Catholic for life. I've never been to church. I don't even know what God's name is, but my mom told me I'm Catholic, so I'm Catholic. It's just different. But yeah, like I said, you asked me what church am I? What do not? I wouldn't say. I'd say I don't go, but I wouldn't say I'm. Oh, I'm. I don't even know. I'm Methodist.
Well, apparently we should be expecting just a couple more weeks here of the Supreme Court coming out with rulings. Like they go in seasons. I think it's like 2 more weeks, and then they're not going to be making more rulings for a while. So that'll be there should be some stuff dropping here of significance. There's been some things happening, but I don't want to go into too much detail. But yeah, it's just I think some things should be coming. No, some good things. Like,
All right. Don't go into too much detail.
it was no, it just there wasn't much. It wasn't like I honestly I did a little research on it and I straight up can't remember because it was kind of like okay, cool.
Yeah,
Like
that's what I'm finding. I'm doing. I'm just everything is boring to me. I'm trying to like, where's the interesting thing here in the news? But it's it's almost like it's a whole level of new joke level is being revealed. Like whatever I used to think there was even some amount of credibility, or maybe there's a more credible way of. I'm getting to the point now, if it's not really happening within the 30 kilometers around my house, like who cares? Right? Like who cares?
couldn't agree with you more, especially on a national like level. Like it seems like it's a repeat, especially for guys like me and you who've been paying attention since before 2015 when it became fashionable to hate Donald Trump. Like, it's kind of like, oh, I've seen this story before. Like we wave fists, like costs go up, bill gets passed, whatever, bill like, so I don't know. There does seem to be more like burns from like the conservatives, and like that seems to be the common trope now. Like every day there's another conservative yelling at a liberal in the house, and you're just like, it just looks so blasé. It's like I've seen this movie a million times. I don't want to watch Godfather 3 again.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's another Jason Statham tough guy movie.
Yeah.
Direct to Prime Video.
Yeah.
Carney is the fudge maker, or whatever. Ridiculous. So,
I did see, though, apparently Danielle Smith was saying, sorry to cut you off. She just was
saying. No, go ahead.
She, she was asked by Candace Malcolm, like, so do you like Carney better than Trudeau? And she more or less said, like, yeah, like if he's willing to work with us, like he at least knows that like what's got us into this mess was like this economic mumbo jumbo that's just kind of like, that's why they stopped the carbon tax on the consumers. Like, so if he keeps doing more stuff like that, like, yeah, I will like him more than Justin Trudeau. And she was talking about how like, we're working towards getting a bitumen pipeline through BEC. So like, that's kind of like, so I guess kind of go back to, like I said last episode, where Carney's the new neighbor playing the clarinet and the prick playing the drums moved out. So it's just, it's still noisy, but it's better. There's no question. And so far I could say that, like, he doesn't, at the end of the day, he doesn't just like buffoonery, like do the photo ops and the crying and the virtue signaling. So it's right away, that's a huge W on the subconscious that I don't even think we're really taking appreciation for.
No, you are true. Like I would say there's a level of embarrassment has like the embarrassment dial has been turned back from like 10 to 7.
Yeah, back in the middle. Yeah.
5 for you.
It was at 11. That's cool. It was at 11, 12. Okay.
It broke
now
off.
We're back to 5. Now we're just back to 5. And that's huge, like on our subconscious, like to the point where you and I are kind of interested in politics and it's still putting us to sleep. And
well, I just don't believe, like, I guess I give Trump the benefit of the doubt that he's pushing towards an agenda that I might agree with, because he's said things in the past that would indicate that his core beliefs lean more my way. Whereas Carney, every single thing he's said in the past is like diametrically opposed to what I. So even though now he might be playing the part of the guy who's like, oh, I'm open to pipeline. I mean, everything he's said and done to the past. So would indicate opposite.
That Bill Z2 is just like,
yeah, like,
okay, Stasi.
I mean,
like, yeah.
yeah, exactly. I don't know. The name of the game, like I said, parallel societies. I mean, to try to fight against digital currency or this, the technology is already there with our phones and tracking and our banking. They can already do what they want anyways. So you just have to be the guy who's, and you just have to be the guy who nobody's paying attention to. And then that's basically it.
Be the ant on the block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the ant on the. You know what's worse than ants in your pants?
No, I don't, Jay. What is ants in your wall?
No, uncles.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a great place to end this episode.
That is worse. I think tell us in the comments if you agree that that's worse. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for coming out, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Good night.
Wow!